The New York Yankees have extended their manager Aaron Boone to a 2-year deal that'll take him through 2027. The Pittsburgh Pirates have added to their already good starting rotation by bringing in Andrew Heaney. We also see ESPN and MLB mutually agree to opt out of their deal, meaning this will be the final year of baseball on ESPN. What does all this mean for the future of baseball? That and much, much more ahead. And of course, we continue our series, the 2025 season preview tonight for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe, and let's get started. And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Thursday evening. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the Four Nations Face-Off Championship game. U.S. versus Canada. Canada taking it in overtime. Just an incredible game. Up and down the action was pretty much the entirety of the game. Didn't have that same zeal that the first one did with the fisticuffs in the first 9 seconds of the game the other night. But all in all, just a really great tournament overall, and I think it bodes well for the future of hockey. But as far as baseball, we had a couple of big events happen today. Aaron Boone gets his contract extended with the New York Yankees. That was something to have been rumored for pretty much the last month or two with the New York Yankees, something that was going to get done before the regular season, but they do finally get it across the finish line there. Pittsburgh does add Andrew Heaney to an already very good starting rotation. I really like this signing for them. It's a value signing, 1 year, $5 million with incentives. Heaney, I thought, was going to be a much more valuable pitcher on this market, especially considering the consistency and the availability that he really brought to a Texas Rangers team that really needed that last year. I thought there was an outside chance that he could even go back to Texas. But there are several teams that I think missed the opportunity to bring him in. I think an innings-eating starter at least is what you could view him as, with the upside of being one of the better guys in your rotation when it comes to stuff. When he's on, he really can spin that ball. When he's not, obviously you can pull him a little bit early. That's kind of what we saw throughout his tenure with the Texas Rangers. But last year, a model of consistency for what was otherwise a very up and down Texas rotation with all the injuries and young guys coming into and out of that starting rotation. This year, the rotation looks a lot more settled, so they wanted to go a little bit different direction as they try to pinch a few pennies to rebuild that bullpen. But for Pittsburgh, they're getting a good number 3-4 type of starter who's going to slot into that rotation quite well. I think they had some good options in the minor leagues, but they might not have been willing to necessarily bump them up to the major leagues if a need arose throughout the entirety of the season. Now with an Andrew Heaney there, I think what they are getting this year is what they hoped Martin Perez would have been last year, who they got from the Rangers as well. But I think Andrew Heaney's going to do a very nice job there in Pittsburgh. Wish the best for him. He was the model of consistency in that Rangers rotation, and I hope the same for him with the Pittsburgh Pirates. But again, for the Pirates, their bigger issue remains, even after the signing of Andrew Heaney, the bringing in of Tommy Pham, and the trade of for Horowitz, that they still need more offense. And maybe Andrew Heaney does bring them some offense in the way of a trade. Say they get to the deadline and they already like their rotation, and one of their young guys has finally stepped up, and they're ready to go, and they say, hey, Andrew Heaney, love having you, but you served your purpose. Let's go ahead and trade you to a contender and try to get a bat from another team. That could be one route we see them try to add another impact piece to this lineup. How much impact can it really be for a one-year starting pitcher for $5 million? We'll see. But I think Andrew Heaney is a very good signing for them either way. Appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook at Upside Sports Network as well. Posted a few videos today. We'll post a few more videos tomorrow as well, kind of updating those of you who did not pay attention to some of the headlines today. Zach Martin is retiring as a member of the Dallas Cowboys, easily going to slide right on into the Hall of Fame, Ring of Honor, one of the greatest Cowboys to ever suit up, especially on that offensive line. And then, of course, you get the injury to Victor Wembanyama, who goes out for the entirety of the season. Spurs got a huge upset win tonight in Austin, as they were not able to play in San Antonio tonight, and beat the Phoenix Suns, who really needed to come out of the All-Star break on firing on all cylinders, and just fell flat. Ultimately, the Spurs really kind of ran away and hid with this one. Suns tried to come back a little bit towards the end of the game, but fell a little bit short. Appreciate you joining us, Rafe and Holly. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We sucked tonight. Can't believe we lost. That had so many opportunities. They did have a lot of opportunities there, I will say that. But ultimately, Canada was able to pull it out. Good for them. At least AD should be back in 2 to 3 weeks. Incorrect, Rafe. That is incorrect. The update, one of the videos we're going to have for you guys tomorrow, the update will be out on the 6th. As for when they will have more information on Lively, on Gafford, and Anthony Davis. The expectation is that it's going to be a 1-month injury from the All-Star break. So I'm expecting sometime at the very earliest in the middle of March when we could expect them. That's when they're at least going to reevaluate all 3 of their centers there. So kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at the Dallas Mavericks, that they signed Moses Brown for a reason. They're going to get P.J. Washington back starting tomorrow night, it looks like. And Dwight Powell could be a little bit closer than some might have expected a week ago. They might even have him back by the end of this 10-day contract with Moses Brown. Rafe, Heaney was a solid pickup, but man, what happened to Yarborough? I hear you. Heaney, to me, was a really good starting pitcher that I'm surprised lasted this long on the market. One other name that I'm still waiting to see where he goes is Robertson. He's been fantastic. One of the most consistent performers in the bullpen for the last 10 years or more. He has been that good, and his performance last year really demonstrated that he can still hang with the big boys in back-to-back outings in the middle of the year last year for a Texas Rangers team that was still trying to push this thing towards a repeat, ultimately, of course, falling short. But at that time, Robertson was able to go up against the best of the best with the Los Angeles Dodgers, and on back-to-back nights, strike out in order Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Shohei Ohtani. So just incredible performance last year by Robertson, not just in those games, but throughout the entirety of the season. Very rarely do you see him give up a really clunker of an outing out there, and so that's why I say he's one of the more consistent relievers you see out there. Year after year, we always see a guy have a 2 ERA in the bullpen, and then the next year comes back with a 4.5. The year after that, he's back to around a sub-3. The year after that, he's over a 5 ERA. And that's usually how bullpens usually work. But Robertson has been the model of consistency throughout his career, and I'm surprised the team hasn't latched onto him yet. I mean, every team out there could use a bullpen arm at this point. Not every team, though, has the financial resources to give him the contract he is looking for. I imagine it's going to be in the neighborhood of a 1-year $1-year $10 million deal. We'll see what he ultimately comes in at. But Yarborough, in case you guys missed the headline, he decided to agree to a minor league deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. Good for them to get some depth there as well. Don't tell me it was, I was told 2 to 3 weeks earlier today. I think you misunderstood what they were telling you there, Rafe. I think that you misunderstood what Jason Kidd and others were telling you, that March 6th was the day that we're going to get the updates. We're not going to get an information as far as, hey, March 6th is the day Anthony Davis will be back, and then March 8th he'll be in a game. It's not going to happen that way. That's when you get to reevaluate their injuries. Dwight Powell's been out so long. The reason why he's not, suiting up tomorrow night for the Dallas Mavericks is going to take some time to get his conditioning back, because this was his first practice with the team in, a month or two? So good on him to get back into the lineup when they really need a big man. I'd expect it to be about a week or so until he's back into good enough shape where they'll trust him in a game. I'd be surprised if he gets back sooner than that. But as far as Anthony Davis, this is not going to be a quick turnaround here. This is going to be at least around a month for his injury. Gafford, we're looking almost right at the end of the season, maybe the final game of the season. Derek Lively could be at the beginning of April, so it's going to be a while until that center rotation for them is back in business there. Also heard Powell is good to go when Brown's contract ends. Yes, that's what we're referring to there. Sean, will Jordan Montgomery last all season with the Diamondbacks? I doubt he lasts the entirety of the season with them. Honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that they held on to him this long. But now with Heaney off the books, or off the free agent market, there's really not another starting pitcher that's out there left in free agency that's on the caliber of Jordan Montgomery when he's right. That, of course, is a big caveat there, because last year was an absolute disaster for him from start to finish. I think he's going to be a really good option for somebody, but you have to get him in camp early here. The only way I think this goes well for Jordan Montgomery with the Arizona Diamondbacks. If he has a solid spring training with the Arizona Diamondbacks, no interruptions, gets into a regular groove during the regular season, we'll see if they put him in the bullpen. We'll see if they put him in the starting rotation. I would put him in the starting rotation just because that's what he's known. And then you never know how the rotation ultimately follows through the rest of the year. But I would say by the end of April, I would try to find another suitor for him at that point. I would just try to have him go through a normal spring training with your ball club and try to reap the rewards of a better start to a season this year than what he had last year. But ultimately, no, I don't think he finishes the season with the Diamondbacks. They have too many starting pitchers. Now, usually you can't say that with starting pitching. You can never really have too many of them. But you look at how many grade A starting pitchers they have. Zach Gallen, Merritt Kelly. They have Corbin Burns, who they just brought in. Fat is still going to be there. They have several other starters, Rodriguez, Nelson, etc., that they're going to be counting on. Montgomery is probably the 7th or 8th starter in their own depth chart. I'd be surprised if they held on to him throughout the entirety of the season, especially after the owner said the comments he said at the end of last year. I think that front office is looking to offload at least a little bit of that salary, so they have some payroll flexibility once they get to the trade deadline, once they move his contract to another club. All right, anyways, the D-backs pretty good offseason, but we got to fight like hell to make a wild card spot. I agree. I think that Diamondbacks team is probably one of the best teams in the National League. But when you're in the same division as the Los Angeles Dodgers, you can kind of see how it's already an uphill climb no matter where you are. Now, I would say their rotation, one of the best in baseball. I would say their lineup is certainly improving. But we shall see if some of the youth might cost them as far as a chance to make it to October. You have to stay tuned for that here in just a moment. Sean, does Arenado start the season on the Cardinals? I still think there's going to be a team that's out there that looks at their roster and says, hey, we're a Nolan Arenado away from being a contending team, and they go ahead and try to make the move there. Or the other option is, hey, I don't really like what we did in the offseason. We still have a hole at third base, first base, DH, and they make a move there. The last option is one nobody wants to see, and that's an injury to a club out there. Say the Texas Rangers lose Josh Young for the season due to another injury. They could have some flexibility there. Of course, they already have some good in-house options to fill the role, but if they would rather have a proven commodity there at third base, maybe they circle around to Nolan Arenado. So I would expect him to at least be close to around the start of the season, whether it's before the opening day or a few weeks or a month after opening day. I do believe Nolan Arenado will be moved early this season. I do not think he'll be there to the trade deadline. I guarantee he will not be there after the trade deadline at the very latest. Rafe, that's what a Mavs news page told me. I didn't really look at it too much until talk actually sparked up. Yes, I hear you there, Rafe, but it's going to be March 6th is the reevaluation date. That's literally all it is. Larry, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. I think that the Yankees should have waited until after the season to see how it goes before giving Aaron Boone 2 more years. It looks like the Yankees are happy with making the playoffs, not winning. I hear you. The Yankees are a team that measures their success in championships won, not divisions or wild card appearances. So I'll agree with you on that one. Now, Aaron Boone, I would say, has done a very nice job there in New York. He's handled the New York pressure. He's handled the front office. He's handled, the ownership issues there. All those kind of things he's handled with incredible grace there, and he's been able to stand his ground. I will say that for him. He's done far better than I think any one of us really expected him to do there. Obviously, we knew he had the baseball acumen, but the question was, would he be able to translate that as a manager of the New York Yankees? He's been there for, a decade now, it feels like. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. I'm not sure when he actually got the role. I'll check on that in a minute. But he's been there, seems like forever at this point now, and he's made the role his own. And I would say he's done very well in that role. Now, very well in that role for, say, the Texas Rangers, where they're not necessarily trying to they're not measuring their seasons by championships won, whereas the Yankees, they measure their success by the number of World Series trophies they have. And, I can hear you, Yankees fans, as far as why you might have some hesitation with that extension. But looking at Cashman, I think the guy buying the groceries is having more of an issue than the guy that's actually trying to fit this thing together. I think this is a kind of a, how do I put this? A team without many options, we'll put it that way. Without having much athleticism, without having much in the way of versatility in that lineup. And Boone just kind of had to make, lemonade with, grapes. He tried to make the best out of it during some of those tough years, honestly. and you kind of see how the money being spent out there wasn't necessarily invested in some of the wisest places. Looking at DJ LeMahieu, looking at Marcus Stroman, how those contracts have kind of soured on that team. Of course, you have Giancarlo Stanton, one of the worst contracts on their books. Has kind of looked better the last couple of years as Stanton's kind of woken up offensively and been healthy for the majority of those seasons. But in general, you would rather have not made that trade for Stanton because then you could have done a number of other things in free agency. And I would think that would have been a better way for them to go. But I still think the deal's a good one. I think the Yankees and Boone were kind of a match right now. I don't think anybody out there in the market would be a better fit in New York. Even if they have issues this year in the postseason, I still think Boone would be the guy there. But again, it's just a 2-year deal. So if this thing goes south rather quickly, they can easily get out of it. So I don't think it's necessarily a deal that hamstrings the New York Yankees from deciding to make a change if one is necessary. Rafe, you going to talk about possible trade spots for Monty? Yes, we will. Rafe, if not, then that's my question for you. We will. Also, hope Miller going to be okay after a rough day. Yes, Miller got hit by a line drive 106 miles an hour off the bat in a spring training game, in the inaugural spring training game this year between the Chicago Cubs and the Los Angeles Dodgers. The ABS system was utilized in that game by Cody Poteet. First time it had been used in a major league spring training game, and it was used successfully. A ball was called, or a strike was called a ball on the field. It was reviewed and immediately changed over to a strike because it was within the strike zone. So lots of changes coming, hopefully very soon. And hopefully Miller is going to be okay. According to reports this evening anyway, he is in good spirits, suffering little to no ill effects of the ball striking him in the noggin. Scary kind of a look to it, but of course they're going to take their time, make sure he's not concussed over the next couple of days. I think they might give him a day or two off of training here and just see how things go. But he's looking for a big year this year. They got a whole bunch of arms in that starting rotation. Miller's going to have to crack that rotation by just sheer willpower at this point. And getting a line drive to the head the first time you're out there in spring training, not a great start. But hopefully he can rebound nicely from there. Sean Buster only said that the Cubs have flexibility to trade for someone like Arenado. Yes, that is something we have been speculating on since Bregman signed with the Red Sox, that they could look for a more veteran hitter, and Arenado is making about $22-ish million. If you get the Cardinals to eat quite a bit of that salary, that could be a more palatable deal, at least to the Chicago Cubs. And I wonder if the payroll is really becoming an issue for Tom Ricketts, even though he says it's not. Even though he says he wants to go out there and spend, he's given the flexibility for Jed Hoyer to go out there and spend. They certainly had a budget anyway when it came to Alex Bregman. I thought they should have been the highest bidding team in that market, or at least darn close to it. Ultimately, they had the worst offer out of the 4 teams that finished as finalists for Bregman. That's not good enough, and they need to resolve it. Check out the comments made by Ken Rosenthal over the last couple of days. He kind of eviscerated that Cubs ownership, in addition to some of these other owners that are content just competing for a wild card spot. And hey, we're good enough to get in. Great. We're not going to overinvest in this team. We're just going to hope to catch lightning in a bottle and be a profitable business. They do own the team. They can choose to run that team that way if they want. But this is a sport that's about winning, and this is a time where they should be spending, much higher than what they are. The Cubs are one of the best teams as far as total revenue. They're one of the most valuable franchises based off of valuation. There's no reason this owner with this team, with this success, with the prospects they've got coming, that they should not be investing in this ball club, and they need to make some changes there. Hopefully, they attack free agency better next year when Kyle Tucker will be a free agent along with several other top-end players. MP, welcome in. Arenado made it clear he's not changing his list of 5 teams he would approve a trade to. Yankees are not in that list. He did make that abundantly clear over the last couple of days after Mozeliak came out and said, nope, we're not going to trade you. We don't have an ability to trade you right now because the teams that are on your list have no interest in trying to acquire you anymore. So we'll see if cooler heads prevail there for Arenado. I think they will, and I do think he'll be moved at some point here early in spring training or early in the regular season. One of the two. I do not expect him to go very long with this season with the St. Louis Cardinals. Rafe, LeBron cooked today. Yeah, he is 40. Rafe told him not to challenge, and they challenged anyways, yes. MP, the 5 teams Arenado would accept a trade to: Dodgers, Padres, Angels, Phillies, and Mets. That was the list of teams. I do remember that one. However, there were some rumblings around the in between Christmas and New Year's that he would have accepted a trade to the Yankees. There were some rumblings over the last couple of weeks before Bregman went to Boston that Boston would be a fit there as well. Arenado kind of let it be known through his representatives that he would be willing to do something like that. But he hasn't officially changed that or amended that list of teams that you mentioned there. And all three of the teams that that the Cardinals reached out to, the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Red Sox, all passed because they did not find any common ground anywhere close to becoming close to a deal there. So I would expect Arenado to at some point loosen up that list, and we'll see if it gets done. MP on his last interview said that the list remains the same and will not change it. I imagine he's trying to force their hand. The Angels, I'm sure, would love to bring in a veteran influence. I think the better move for them would be not to do so. I think they've got enough there. As far as the Padres, maybe if they move on from a couple of their big money contracts, but they're not going to take back another big money contract in return. The Cardinals have to eat a significant portion of that deal. Highly unlikely there that he goes to the Padres. Dodgers said thanks, but no thanks already. We've discussed that ad nauseum. Phillies, I think, would have been an interesting team, but they don't have the ability to take on literally any salary. That's not happening. The Mets, they have an opening there at third base if they wanted to bring in another veteran there. They have some good youth options coming, of course. Vientos is still there. You got to figure out what you're going to do with him at the DH spot and in the outfield, etc. But maybe the Mets are a team that could be a fit for them in April or May if they have an injury to a third baseman, a DH, or they have some poor performance in that infield. And of course, if Alonso gets off to a rough start and isn't hitting the ball out of the ballpark, grounding into double plays all the time, maybe they go for a veteran bat like Nolan Arenado. Rafe, I know it's only spring training, but the Dodgers losing, got to put a smile on my face. It is spring training, my friend. Still hoping the Dodgers trade for him. Might not happen, but one can only wish. I would love to see it. As far as Arenado going to the Dodgers, I think that it's good for baseball when we really have one of those mega teams out there, one of those big super teams out there, and every person that they add onto that roster just adds another chunk of armor to this ball club. So we'll see how good this team really is during the regular season and if they can challenge the Mariners for the best record ever during the regular season. Just want to roll through a couple of the headlines today, that we haven't already gone through. We talked a little bit about the TV deal changing between ESPN and MLB, both deciding it was best for both sides to go ahead and opt out of the deal. MLB wanted to do it because ESPN doesn't really showcase their product. They don't talk about it on their programming. They talk about football first, second, third, and fourth. And when there's a gap in there, they fill it with basketball. They're beholden to those two sports in addition to MLB, and MLB has been put on the back burner. So good on MLB for getting this out of the clutches of ESPN, where I think it would have caused viewership to continue to tumble. Now, the one issue I think this poses for MLB, what does this do for the future money around Major League Baseball? Do revenues continue to fall because of bad TV deals? Do you go to a streaming service provider exclusively? Do you break up that national TV product into a couple of different providers? Go to Prime and say, hey, we'll give you this allotment of ESPN. They had this Sunday Night Baseball. Would you like to have the Sunday Night Baseball game with ESPN, or that ESPN had, and have it on Amazon? That's a legitimate possibility if they wanted to go down that route. And Amazon has already dipped their toe into the regional broadcasting market for baseball games. Maybe this would be another natural progression for them to go through as well. Other news, the Mariners added a minor league signing here in Rowdy Tellez, a good bench bat for them if he breaks through in spring training. The A's signed Dylan Florio on a minor league deal, another bullpen arm coming off the board. Maybe he breaks into camp with them, or breaks through in camp with them and starts the season with them on the active roster. I do expect him at some point during the year to be a member of that Sacramento A's team on that 25, 26-man roster anyway. Mike Clevenger is back with the Chicago White Sox on a minor league deal. Remember, they signed Martin Perez. I think if Perez does falter, they go with another veteran in that rotation like a Mike Clevenger there. See if they can get some innings out of those starters there and maybe trade them at the deadline there. All right, and we already mentioned the Yarbrough deal with the Blue Jays. Let's go ahead and get to our preview video for the Arizona Diamondbacks. So without further ado, our 2025 season preview for the Arizona Diamondbacks starts now. Welcome into the 2025 season preview video for the Arizona Diamondbacks. My name is Michael here at the Upside Sports Network. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe here on YouTube, as we will be live every single evening breaking down all the latest throughout the MLB regular season and throughout the playoffs. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook at Upside Sports Network. Now, the Arizona Diamondbacks are a year removed from making it all the way to the World Series, only to fall short to the Texas Rangers. This year's team is a better roster than what they had at that point. Let's get into it. So looking at their depth chart with what Fangraphs expects this roster to look like as they go into the regular season, we'll start with kind of their lineup here. Corbin Carroll at the top, no surprise there. Ketel Marte. The big addition to this lineup, of course, is Josh Naylor. I think this is a really big signing for them. I think he's a little bit better offensive piece than Christian Walker. We'll see how big of an offensive upgrade that he ultimately is. I think they'll suffer a little bit defensively. Christian Walker, one of the best defensive first basemen in the game, if not the best first baseman defensively, at least. I think they'll have a little bit of a fall off there, but they really need somebody to come in there with some thump in that lineup. That's kind of what I thought they were missing. They lost Jock Peterson, of course, as well. Looking at the rest of this lineup, Gurriel, McCarthy, Suarez, Pavin Smith, Gabriel Moreno, and Perdomo. They're expecting a platoon at that DH spot with Randall Grichuk, who just signed there recently. He had a great year last year, but we'll see if he can replicate those numbers. The rest of the bench, Jose Herrera, Blaze Alexander, and Alek Thomas. Expect a lot of their minor leaguers that are coming up through the ranks to break through on this roster as we go through the year. Guys like the top prospect there, blanking on it, Jordan Lawler anyway. The only top 100 prospect this year in the Diamondback system is ranked number 11. I expect him to make an impact on this roster at some point this year. Perdomo anyway, just agreed to an extension, a 4-year, $48 million extension with his club. I think he's locked into that spot, but I think he could also be used as more of a utility player if Lawler really comes up and lights the world on fire. I think they'll take their time with him. I don't think they'll push the issue, but at least for 25, I think Perdomo is going to be the everyday shortstop. But overall, this is a lineup that I kind of like. I like Carroll, Marte, and Naylor at the top. Gurriel, I think, is a good offensive piece. McCarthy getting everyday playing time out there, I think, is a good thing as far as his consistency. Looking at the WAR numbers, they're expecting over 4 for 3 of those guys. Gabriel Moreno had a up and down year last year. We had a better year in 23, but they're expecting around a 4 WAR season for him. Corbin Carroll had a down year for his numbers anyway last year. I'm expecting a nice resurgent year for him. And Ketel Marte, I think, is going to be a very good offensive piece for them. All 3 of those guys over 4. The rest of their team pretty much between 1 and 2. And I think there is some room for improvement on some of these positions here, like Eugenio Suarez. I think they could have done better here at third base. I would not have made the trade with Seattle and bailed them out of that money. I would have gone a different direction with that position there. Maybe even had Lawler take over that position this year if he had been given more at bats last year. Bygones be bygones, spilled milk, whatever you want to call it. Suarez is there for better or worse this season. So, do I think he's the best option there this year? Probably not, but it's the option they've got. But overall, I like where they're at with their lineup. Looking at their rotation, and this is really going to be the strength of this ball club. Corbin Burnes slots in there as the number 1. The surprise of the offseason that Corbin Burnes reached out to the Diamondbacks and said, hey, I want to sign here. What do you think about a deal? And they came to a deal very quickly there. Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, both free agents at the end of the year. Both really good options at the top of the rotation. Now slot down a little bit here. This is going to be one of the best rotations, not just in the National League, but in the entire game of baseball. I think this is a very good rotation. Definitely in the top 5, maybe top 3 in the game. I know there are some detractors for some of these guys as far as having bad years or having some peripheral numbers that don't look so good. But I think the experience in that rotation, when you have a Brandon Pfaadt in there as your number 5 starter, this is a very solid rotation. Looking at their WAR, Corbin Burnes, I think he finished top 5 in the AL Cy Young voting last year. They're expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of around a 4 WAR season for him. I think that's fairly accurate. I think Zach Gallen, they only have at 2.6, is a little low, but we'll have to see how he performs. Merrill Kelly, Rodriguez, and Pfaadt are all between 1.5 and 2. Not too bad there, but I think the depth in this rotation is really where it's going to be. This is a rotation that does have several of their options in it as well, not including those 5 other starters that we just named there as well. Looking at their bullpen, they have A.J. Puck back there. Ginkel is still there. They got some really good options. I really love the addition of Kendall Graveman. I think there's a chance he becomes their closer during this season if Puck does struggle. Graveman's been a closer before and shown he can handle it, and he's on a very team-friendly deal there as well. You'll notice the long reliever there is Jordan Montgomery. I think there's a good chance he actually starts the season in the rotation, and they try to trade him before they get into the month of May. I still think that he'd be best served by staying the entire the entire spring training season now that it's already started, by staying with the Arizona Diamondbacks, getting his feet wet, making sure he's comfortable and ready to go for opening day. But if they decide to trade him, or if there's a team that's out there still looking for another starter, maybe they move him a little bit in anticipation of opening day. But overall, a very solid bullpen. Would I say it's the best bullpen in the game? No, that belongs to the Los Angeles Dodgers. But it's an improved bullpen with Kendall Graveman coming in. Got to see how he performs after he missed the entirety of last season as well. Other names that are injured, they have Kyle Nelson anyway is injured, thoracic outlet syndrome surgery. He had that surgery in May of last year. Not sure when his timetable will be. Hopefully around the All-Star break would be my best guess, but I have no medical degree. Let's be very clear about that. Sal Frank is a 1-year suspension. He won't be back until probably around the All-Star break at the earliest as well. Looking at their minor leagues, nobody really sticks out as far as a catcher there. First base, Trey Mancini was a guy they brought in on a minor league deal trying to resurrect his career. I really hope that he makes it as a bench bat for them. Otherwise, I think this might be the last hurrah for him. He is almost 33 years old anyway. But, they're expecting him to at least get some time with the Arizona Diamondbacks on the big league roster at some point. But we'll see how he really responds in spring training here. Second base, Garrett Hampson, a good speed guy for them. Some depth there up the middle, not too bad. Third base, nobody really to mention there. Then shortstop, of course, they have Jordan Lawler, the one I mentioned there. They also have Gray Kissinger as well, another good depth option for that infield. So if they do have a rash of injuries, they have the depth that they should be able to withstand those. In the outfield, Christian Pache is again on this roster. I think he's more of a depth option more than anything else as far as a speed guy. But I think he's seen his prospect status fall far enough to where we can't really expect much out of him at this point. Looking at their starting pitcher depth, Nelson, of course, is still here. Nobody else really jumps out of this for me. Let's see here. Looking at their relief pitchers, they got quite a list of non-roster invitees trying to get this bullpen together here. Bingham stands out to me. Bring him anyway. Scott Magoo rings a bell or two. Nobody else really pops out to me anyway. But overall, I like this rotation. I love this rotation, actually. If I had to stack it up with the other rotations in the National League, I'd probably put Dodgers at number 1. Phillies would be in the conversation for 2 or 3. I think the Padres would be in that conversation for around that top 5 number. But I think this rotation is currently constructed definitely in that top 3 in the National League as well. As far as prospects, like I mentioned, their only top prospect in the top 100 is Jordan Lawler. He is number 11 entering the year. They have a couple other guys that were in the top 100 last year that have seen their prospect status fall a little bit. That's Drew Jones. That's Tommy Troy as well. I think both of these prospects, while they've seen their star fall a little bit, I still think they can hope on a little bit here with Drew Jones. I think there's a good chance he's on the Major League roster at some point in the next year or so. I think there's a good chance he takes over an outfield spot in the next 2 years, but remains to be seen how he will affect the 2025 season. Overall, I just think they need to get a little bit better as far as development here. They're kind of top-heavy with Jordan Lawler and not a whole lot of good quality beyond that. Drew Jones kind of fizzled out a little bit more than what they were hoping. He was supposed to be the next great thing, but ultimately has seen his fair share of struggles. I'm still hoping for the best here, but we shall see. But Diamondbacks need to develop a little bit better in that minor league system. As far as wins of the offseason, of course, getting Corbin Burns to reach out to you and get that deal done. A+ to not screw that one up. Absolutely love the deal for both this year and for what it means for the future of Kelly and Gallen. They have depth. They don't have to overspend now. If one of them takes a team-friendly deal, absolutely sign it right now. If they don't, maybe they can play a little bit of hardball with those guys and say which one of you is going to take the deal first. The other one who doesn't ultimately is going to be left out in the cold and will have to find a new team next year. So really love that for them. And then, of course, the other win of the offseason, bringing in Josh Naylor. Love that trade for them. I think he really elevates the offensive ceiling of this team to where they can be a little bit more productive offensively. Now, they're still going to miss the defense of a Walker there, but I really like what they did so far. As far as misses of the offseason, I think they had a real chance to go after and bring in a Kirby Yates. Ultimately, I think the inability to move on from Jordan Montgomery cost them the ability to sign him because their finances aren't quite in order at the level that they would like to be. So if they had been able to move off of Jordan Montgomery, say a month or so ago, maybe things would have turned out a little bit differently for Kirby Yates. But it sounds like to me Yates really wanted to go to a team that was going to have a real shot to win a World Series as he's entering the twilight years of his career. So maybe maybe he wouldn't have been a great option there if he didn't view the Diamondbacks as a real World Series threat. Can't really argue with the thought process there because the Dodgers are on paper the favorite for the World Series as it stands right now. Diamondbacks to me still needed to add another bullpen arm. They did have a couple of options out there. I do like the signing of a value signing anyway of Kendall Graveman. I think they could have done bigger things though for a guy like Kenley Jansen, who ultimately ended up with the Los Angeles Angels on a not too expensive deal either. Again, if you move off of that money from Montgomery, you could have invested that money in Jansen or done something even bigger if you so choose. As far as mistakes of the offseason, I don't think they really stepped in it this offseason. They didn't really make any big deals that ultimately will hurt them. I think Perdomo's extension was a little bit early, but they get the deal done. Maybe that turns into a mistake, but if that's your worst mistake, you certainly did really well. Now, the biggest thing that could turn into a mistake is, of course, Corbin Burns, because we saw the peripheral numbers weren't exactly what we saw as, say, a 25-year-old Corbin Burns. So there is reason for concern. Does that mean that he's going to be an absolute albatross from a financial perspective? No, I just don't think that's going to happen. I think he's too good of a starting pitcher. And after all, he was in the top 5 of the AL Cy Young voting last year. I think he's still got enough left in the tank, and I think he's learning how to pitch a slightly different way. Like we've seen Kershaw learn how to pitch a little bit different way. Manaea learn how to pitch a little bit differently. Max Scherzer pitch a little bit differently. Verlander pitch a little bit differently. All the guys have to do it after they get to a certain age, and here's hoping for the best for him. As far as the payroll, let's go ahead and check out the Diamondbacks payroll. This is a team that doesn't necessarily have the deep pockets of a team like the Dodgers or anybody like that, but you look at their payroll, they're certainly going to bump up, especially with the signing of Corbin Burns, getting about $35 million, especially early on in this deal. Love this for him as well. And then, of course, Jordan Montgomery is going to be a free agent after the year. They're going to free up a lot of money here. You're looking $37, almost $38 million being freed up between Suarez and Montgomery, two guys who I think should be off of this roster at some point during the year. That's a heck of a lot of savings that they could then go out there and add another piece at that point. Other free agents, of course, Merrill Kelly, like we mentioned. You have the mutual option anyway on Randall Grichuk and Kendall Graveman. And then, of course, you get into the Zach Gallen, Josh Naylor. Both of those guys are pending UFAs at the end of the year. Hopefully they get an extension done with Josh Naylor. I think there's a good chance of that. But Naylor could be looking to go into a free agent marketplace next year that'll feature Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at that position, possibly even a Pete Alonso. And, of course, Josh Naylor, Carlos Santana, and a couple of the other guys that signed one-year deals this offseason as well. Let's see here. Try to catch up on a few of your comments here in the chat. Rafe, also Rangers got 17 straight spring training games. Don't mean much, but noteworthy. Not really to me. I mean, you just try to get every day somebody out there. You always have games on the backfields as well. Always doing bullpens. It's all about growth and getting players ready for the start of the season and allowing your young guys to get a taste of the big league type of competition. So I think just having the 17 straight days, well, it might matter if they were playing every single day. Like if Josh Young was out at third base every single day, that might harm them. But they're going to have lots of depth there. They're not going to play these guys in the ground in spring training. It's just more about them getting enough opportunities to get ready for the season as possible, and that's the goal there. Rafe, anyways, let you talk about D-backs now. Yes, we are talking D-backs today as our 2025 season preview for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Appreciate you guys joining us. Welcome in, Chester. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Follow us here on YouTube. We really do appreciate you guys joining us late on a Thursday or Friday. Now it turned into Friday as my calendar just flipped over as I was about to say that one. On a late Thursday, early Friday morning anyway. But hopefully you guys are having fun with us talking a little bit of baseball as we gear up for the start of the season. Looking at their overall payroll this year, looking at their luxury tax commitments, they got about 148, 49 million in actual salary, another 40 million in arbitration, a couple other contracts there as well. Balloons their payroll number up to $219 million. Luxury tax threshold anyway is 241 million. So they're definitely paying the piper here. They're not exactly being cheap, but look at how that number really drops down next year. Now, of course, you'll have arbitration guys in there, so you're really looking more like 169, 170 million dollars being spent. But that would still be a $50 million reduction in salary that you can then go out there and add a couple of impact pieces to this lineup as well. So we'll see which direction the Arizona Diamondbacks go as their future goes. Because again, look at those numbers there as you go across the screen there. They just get smaller and smaller as you go down. But their Diamondbacks are set up for success in the future. You're still going to figure out what you're going to do with Naylor, Kelly, Gallen, etc. That will eat up quite a bit of that money there, so kind of keep that in mind as well. Alrighty, what holes are left on this team? To me, I think they could have used another impact closer. I don't think there's one out there that they would try to bring in aside from maybe Helsley or something like that. The other thing that could really be a problem for them, maybe they want another impact bat like Josh Naylor. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Maybe there's an opportunity where we've seen them go after a Nick Castellanos type at the deadline that only had a kind of a rental contract anyway, so they kind of made the best use out of that. I think the best piece for them would be more long-term. As far as for the Diamondbacks here, I think some long-term pieces would be best as well because they have some good youth coming, but you don't want to necessarily mortgage the future too much with the other pieces on this roster. So, holes for me, I would look for a bullpen arm, of course. I would look for an impact bat to this lineup. There's going to be no shortage of them that are free agents at the end of the year, like a Kyle Tucker or a Vlad Jr. or a Bo Bichette or somebody along those lines. We mentioned those guys ad nauseum, but there are several guys that are going to be free agents at the end of the year that are going to be bandied about if their team falls out of contention. So I would expect the Diamondbacks to try to take advantage of that type of a market. I would like them to go for more long-term pieces, though. Kind of the thought process here for Corbin Burns was, hey, let's go ahead and get this guy locked up at a number we're comfortable with, rather than overpaying for a Zach Gallen or a Merrill Kelly because they got us over a barrel. I think that process or that approach is a better approach here when they try to build up their roster. But let's go ahead and do some trades here. You mentioned Jordan Montgomery. We'll go ahead and do a hypothetical trade for them. As far as offloading the contract here of Jordan Montgomery, I think the Chicago Cubs are a very good option here as they could use another starting pitcher. We could do him to the Cubs. We've done that one before, though, in a few of our other lives. Other fits would be a team like the Milwaukee Brewers. I think this team is kind of skating on thin ice here when it comes to their starting pitching. So let's go ahead and look and see here what they could ultimately get here. Jordan Montgomery, -10 value. You're going to have to roughly eat about $15 million of this deal to make it worth it for the Brewers because, again, they don't want to spend a whole lot of money. And you want to get a piece back. So you only have to include 4 as far as value. What could the Brewers include? So round 4, all these guys on page 1 are too valuable. Page 2, you could go for a young outfielder at 18 years old. Does nothing for your team this year, but it could be a way forward. Diamondbacks do love those competitive balance picks. So Brewers have been willing to trade those in the past, so maybe they just give up a competitive balance pick and say like a A-ball prospect or somebody with very little value. Somebody like a Vargas here. Very little value here, just to kind of give them something. There you go. Validate the trade, post the trade. So there's your Diamondbacks and Brewers trade there. Jordan Montgomery going to bolster that rotation with some injury risks, some red flags there in Milwaukee going into the year. Now, what would they do as far as a buy at the trade deadline? Let's go ahead and dig into something that they could do there. So again, we'll pull up the Diamondbacks. We'll pull up another team that could be selling a bat at the deadline. Let's see here. Kyle Tucker we've done before with the Cubs. Blue Jays we've done a lot of Vladdy. Let's try to steer clear of that one today at least. We've done a lot with the Padres and Arise. Let's do the Rays. So the Rays are a team that could add a little bit more salary just to make sure they stay above the MLB's issues when it comes to revenue sharing, or Players Association's issues when it comes to revenue sharing. But I think once you get into the regular season, if you're taking back Jordan Montgomery, then maybe it's not a huge issue there. Maybe you don't even have to eat much money if you're the Diamondbacks. So let's kind of look at this roster. What would be a fit here? Page 1. Nobody here on the negative side of things, which is good. Looking at the positive side of things, let's see, around a $5 million valuation is what we kind of came up with before. Don't really have it there. As far as an impact piece, let's look at the majors for the bat. Brendan Lau is one piece that could have been moved here. If they're looking for an impact bat, Yandy Diaz saw his status fall a little bit here. Josh Lowe could be another piece here, but only has 4 years left to control. Diaz and Lau would be the two names I would be looking at here. Say they want to get insurance there at first base for Naylor if he doesn't sign that deal. Let's go ahead and send Yandy Diaz to the Diamondbacks. So 22. That seems a little bit high after the down year that he had, but let's look at what the valuation would be. Around a Jordan Lawler, no thank you. But if you put in a younger second base prospect, maybe that would be a good starting point. I would rather go with the 19-year-old shortstop here in Hansel Luis. That's $11 million. That gets you to about half of the price there. Let's see here. If you did a starting pit or an outfielder like Ryan Waldschmidt, that's one. It gets you close. You're about $2 or $3 million off. Let's go to page 2. 17-year-old third base piece. Kind of fits. Not a bad trade. Validate and post. This would be a nice bat for them to add at the deadline. Yandy Diaz, of course, his value would drop a little bit, probably to the 17 range. So maybe you take out Soler in this deal as well. Welcome in, Steven. Appreciate you joining us. The Mets might be a landing spot for Montgomery. They very well could after having Frankie Montas go down in spring training. Let's go ahead and do one of those. Let me pull it up here. We'll do a Diamondbacks and Mets deal. Of course, you put in Jordan Montgomery. Jordan Montgomery there. And the $15 million that they're probably going to have to eat to make this deal palatable. Not that you're going to have to save money for the Mets, but if you want to get a return from the Mets, you're going to have to eat some of that salary there. So what's around $4 million here for the Mets that they could offload that'd be worth it to them? Let me look at the majors roster first. I want to see if there's anybody on the major side that makes sense. Around 4. Edwin Diaz, you're not trading him. Another relief pitcher, you're not doing that. None of those really make sense. Let's look at the all pieces here. I want to look at the negative value pieces here. Marte, you have to attach more salary. That doesn't make sense. I actually like the deal Manaea signed this offseason. McNeil would be about the right valuation that you could send back the other way. And he signed long-term at a contract that's not too bad. He's such a presence, though, for the Mets on that team. I don't think they would do that trade. So let's go ahead and just do it for prospects here. So for for 4 anyway for Jordan Montgomery, what would it cost you if you were the Mets? So round 4 is what we're looking for. Rodriguez as your catcher, because again, Mets already have their catcher, so they could offload him. That gets you to 3.4, so you only need like a 1.8-ish type of a piece here. Maybe you go with Joel Diaz, 20-year-old starting pitcher, and there's your trade. Mets get their starting rotation a little bit better. They still need an ace, in my opinion, but this would certainly help give them some relief for the Frankie Montas injury here. Jordan Montgomery goes along with the cash, and you get a couple of prospects. Not too bad there. Tim, would Montgomery want to come back to the Yankees? I think he's made those feelings well known that he does not, and really does not prefer going back to the Yankees. Yankees, I think, realized the mistake there, and I think it's a different mindset there in New York right now. I think it would actually be a good fit, but I think Montgomery would be against it, and I think that would kind of be, or that would at least lead me to believe that it's not going to happen there. Now, of course, the team decides where the player gets traded to. Player can't decide that. If they have the best offer on the table, maybe they get him. But I just think a team like the Yankees is going to realize that things didn't work out so well. As much as we'd love to have a pitcher like Jordan Montgomery at his best, he's coming off of a down year, making a big salary, doesn't fit at least for the moment here for the Yankees, and we already have a starting pitcher who's making a lot of money in Marcus Stroman that we're trying to offload anyway. A bad contract for bad contract swap might work, but I don't think it realistically makes sense for either club to trade Stroman in exchange for Jordan Montgomery. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Let's go ahead and see where they'll finish in 2025. This Diamondbacks team, I really like what they did as far as their lineup. I love their rotation. I think their bullpen is pretty good, but I think it could be a little bit better. I'll go ahead and say they definitely make the playoffs. I'm going to go ahead and pencil them in as one of those first wild card teams this year. I think they are that good. I think they're going to squeeze out a couple of teams that might be deserving of a postseason spot as well. But I think with that rotation, they'll be able to get the spot ahead of the other teams that might be vying for that same position. But looking at the Diamondbacks this year, I think they're definitely a wild card team. I think the Dodgers are going to run away and hide with the division this year. But once you get to October, all bets are off. In a short series, maybe the Diamondbacks have those starting pitchers ultimately play very well. I think this is a team that might win a round, but I don't think they're going very far in the postseason beyond that. I don't think they're going to the NLCS. I don't think they're going to the World Series, but I think it will be a very good development year for a lot of their younger players, and I do think they'll have a very good rotation. The question is, do they have enough offense and bullpen to hold it down? That'll be where their season will be decided, and how Josh Naylor really adjusts to playing in Arizona. Steven, Yankees need bats, not arms. I agree, they do need a bat. But they're kind of stuck with what they've got right now on the roster anyway until they make some other moves financially, try to find somebody to take on Marcus Stroman. Until then, I think their hands are kind of tied from doing anything big. Non-roster invitees, minor league deals are kind of the belle of the ball right now for the New York Yankees, so we'll see who they bring in over the next couple of days. As far as the playoffs, like I said, I don't think they're going to the NLCS. I don't think they're going to the World Series, but I do think it'll be a very good showing overall. Expectations for the roster, trades that they could make. Obviously, we're expecting Jordan Montgomery to be moved. I don't think he'll be on this roster after June. At the very latest, I don't think he'll get to that point, but I'd be surprised if he even made it into the season that far with the Diamondbacks. I think there's too much need for starting pitching out there. They should be able to find somebody to at least help them out a little bit here. But, maybe they go out there and buy, at the trade deadline. We've talked a little bit about them trying to acquire a impact bat like Yandy Diaz or somebody along those lines. Maybe they dip their toe in the pond for Luis Ariz, or go after Vlad Guerrero, or maybe they go after Bo Bichette. All of these things are, irons in the fire here for the Blue Jays, as we don't really have for the Diamondbacks, as we know where they're at, but they have some holes that they could fill, but we don't know how this roster is going to perform until we get to the regular season here. But I really like where the Diamondbacks are, or what they did this offseason. I just think they need to continue to prove it on the field and show, that their rotation is as good as advertised. And in a short sample size, in a small series in the postseason, they might surprise the Los Angeles Dodgers. Grade for the offseason, I'm going to go ahead and give them an A. I'm not sure whether I want to give them an A minus or just a regular A. I think I'll give them an A minus, because I think this offense could be just a hair better. I think there is a little bit of risk in that rotation with Corbin Burns, but I do like the acquisition of bringing him in, not turning down the phone call and just saying, we're good in our rotation, we don't want to spend the money, we'll wait until next year and see what we can get in free agency, or see if we can re-sign our own guys. They were proactive and realized they had an opportunity when Burns reached out to them to get that deal done, and they pounced on it. So A minus for me, just because I think they did a great job not missing an opportunity here with Burns. But at the same time, I think they could have done a little bit more in that bullpen, and I think that they're going to need an impact bat probably at the trade deadline. So that's why it's an A minus for me. Growth and surprises for this team, I think a lot of the young guys are really what you're looking for here. Jordan Lawler, Drew Jones, pieces like that to really develop. Also in that starting rotation, Fat to take that next step in his career as a starting pitcher. That'd kind of be what you're hoping for as far as growth. As far as surprises on this team, Looking at this depth chart, let me pull it up real quick for you guys just to look at it one more time. I think Josh Naylor could really be a difference maker in this lineup, unlike what Christian Walker brought or any of the hitters that they had that they lost last year. But Corbin Carroll is going to have a nice bounce back year for this team to really go far anywhere this year, and I think he will do so. As far as a surprise, maybe a name that we might not be expecting to make a big difference for them. Randall Grichuk had a nice year last year. I'm not expecting the same thing. But as far as Jordan Lawler, I think that's where the really big surprise might come from there. And then, of course, in this rotation, if this rotation is healthy throughout the entirety of this year, I think there's a very good case that they're the first wild card and are at least challenging the Dodgers into the final week of the year for the best record in baseball. I think there's a good chance of that on the National League side. It's a good division that they're in, but there are some cakewalks in that division as well with the Rockies in there. I think the Giants are still a good team. I'm not calling them a cakewalk, but I'm not saying they're the Los Angeles Dodgers either. NL Central, of course, is anybody's guess who's going to be the best team there. And then, of course, you have some bottom dwellers there in the NL East as well that they could pounce, or they could, get some good use out of there as well. So we'll see what happens. I think that the Diamondbacks are in a good position overall. Ceiling for this team, say they surprise us. Everything breaks their way. They're healthy. They're having dominant years on the mound. Bullpen worked out great and flawlessly. They get the impact bat, and they're just an absolute steamrolling team right now once we get to October. What's the ceiling for this club? I still don't think they're beating the Los Angeles Dodgers on their best day, unless their rotation really comes out and proves something to me, and that rotation for the Dodgers ultimately disappears. That's really the only scenario I see them beating the Los Angeles Dodgers this year, because I think they have the better rotation in LA. I think they certainly have the better bullpen. Their lineup is better in LA, but maybe, just maybe, they will be a team that surprises us there. Floor for this team. Say Corbin Burns' peripheral numbers ultimately affect him a lot more. Doesn't provide the same level of success that he had in years past, and that contract immediately starts to be a little bit of a regret once again for the Arizona Diamondbacks ownership group there. As far as other pieces to kind of keep an eye on, say Eduardo Rodriguez struggles again this year with injury and performance. They are unable to find a taker for Jordan Montgomery, and Montgomery does not pitch well. I think floor for this team, as far as win total, let's go ahead and look at where they finished last year first. The Diamondbacks finished just outside of the wild card last year, just missing it there. Not even a game back. They just weren't quite good enough. I think there's a good chance that they'll leapfrog a couple of those teams that you see on the screen there. But I would say for a team that finished 89 wins, I think they'd probably get up to, say, 91. Maybe they grace us with a 92 as far as the best season there. Worst case scenario there, I think this is probably a 78, 76 win team if things ultimately go poorly, or if injuries become a big issue for them as well. Alrighty, appreciate you guys joining us. Hopefully you guys had some fun talking a little bit baseball with us as spring training has finally begun. Four Nations tournament concluded today. Zach Martin retired from the Dallas Cowboys. Wembanyama is out for the year in the NBA. A lot of things happening around the sports world, so we'll have a lot of videos coming out for you guys tomorrow. Appreciate you guys' support. And thank you guys again for tuning in. It really does mean a lot to us. If you guys missed the videos we posted today, please check them out on our YouTube page. Hit that like and subscribe. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook at Upside Sports Network. Very cold out there, so be sure you guys are staying warm out there, everybody. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow night. As far as what team we will do, we've already done in the NL West anyway. We did the Dodgers already. We did the Giants. We've done the Diamondbacks, and we've done the Rockies. I was trying to hold off on the Padres. I think I'll hold off on them for just a little bit longer. Let's go ahead and do another National League team, though. Let's go ahead and check out the Pittsburgh Pirates after they make the acquisition of Andrew Heaney. I think their shopping is pretty much done. So we'll kind of go through the Pittsburgh Pirates offseason and see how they're geared up for the 2025 regular season. So appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you guys for watching our 2025 season preview video for the Arizona Diamondbacks. If you've missed our series up to this point, we've already done the Chicago Cubs, Los Angeles Dodgers, New York Mets, San Francisco Giants, Kansas City Royals, Colorado Rockies, and now the Arizona Diamondbacks. We'll continue our series tomorrow with the Pittsburgh Pirates. We'll see you guys then. Y'all have a great evening. Stay warm out there, everybody.